policy for flood. So citizens kind of stepped up, knowing and acknowledging the insurance crisis we have in Florida, to say, you know what, we're not going to make you get flood coverage. You're on the 12th floor and your building has a master insurance policy. We're not going to make you get flood coverage, Mr. or Mrs. Unit Owner. And now here's the part where you're going to want to know. The bill provides additional pre-sale notice requirements in contracts for sales of a unit by a developer or for resales. A developer and an owner reselling the unit must give a prospective buyer of a condominium or cooperative unit a copy of the turnover inspection report completed on or after July 1st, 2023, if applicable, and a copy of the inspector prepared summary of the milestone inspection. So you don't have to give the whole engineering report, but you do have to give a summary. By the way, if we're not yet at the 2024 deadline, right? Or maybe an earlier deadline, you have to let people know we don't have the report yet, okay? So you have to let them know we understand, but we don't have it yet. And so this provision is similar to current contract notices to unit owners obligated to furnish governing documents to prospective buyer. Unit more than 3 days before closing for sales by a non-developer owner, or 15 days before closing for sales by a developer, and a contract that doesn't conform to these notice requirements is voidable at the option of the purchaser prior to closing. And with that, I think, Shakira, I've made my deadline.
Yes, you definitely did. Did anybody have questions? I know that's a lot of information. Everybody's asking, is there an outline or a summary to this? Because there's so much information. They're trying to take notes and they can't keep up with you, Donna.
But not everybody can take, what do they call that, dictation?
Yes.
Yeah, as I said, we'd be happy to share. We put out a lot of resources at Becker for our association clients. I push it out on social media. My social media link is @Condo and HOA Law on Twitter. I will put a link to our legislative guidebook. I can even follow up, Shakira, and have Julie send you a link to that when it's out. It'll be a couple weeks because we have maybe 24 other bills that the construction defect bill, the HOA Bill of Rights, which is huge for HOAs. We've got the artificial turf and flags bill that's going to be in there. The criminal activity premises liability is huge for these communities. So yeah, we're going to put out a whole guidebook.
They want to know if you're on Facebook or Instagram.
I am on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is the same thing, Condo and HOA Law, Donna D. Berger, Berger. And Facebook, I have 2 Facebook pages. My Donna D. Berger is my professional. Donna DiMaggio Berger is my personal. I tell my high school and college friends, they're like, when did you get so boring with all this condo stuff? And I'm like, you're on the wrong page. Okay, you need to go to the DiMaggio page. It's Donna D. Berger for my professional. And yes, that's my Facebook page is great to put out there because I put all of our links to our guidebooks, my podcast. I have a podcast called Take It to the Board. So for those of you, I've got tomorrow's episode is I interview my partner, Joe Adams, who made the foolish decision to ride out Hurricane Ian from his home on Fort Myers Beach and was sending us real-time video of the water going up. He's in a 3-story home. He was fine, but it was pretty harrowing. So I hope I've provided you all with some good information.
That was wonderful information. Now, does anybody have any questions for Donna, or maybe for her to recap something? What happens when Condo does meet requirements because the owners were fighting about prices?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that actually speaks to the last part of the glitch bill that I mentioned, which is before now, the division, if an owner had called the division and said, my board's not doing the right thing because they're fighting over prices, the division would have said, too bad, we can't help you. Now they'll help you. So the answer to that question is pick up the phone, contact the ombudsman, contact the division, contact your local building official.
Okay.
Could you please put your information in the comments so that we know how to find you, the Facebook page and all of that?
Yeah. Shakira, will you put that in there, or want me to do that right now?
How about I do that? How about your
well, here I can do it. So my Instagram is at,
I was going to say, or email me and I can email everybody.
And then lastly, that's the podcast.
So just to go over one thing. So the 40-year inspection, when the condo is over a certain age, you have to have one, and they have until 2024 to have one. In the meantime, when we're selling,
Down, Shakira, I'm sorry, but it's 40 and 50 were the old certification requirements in Miami-Dade and Broward. Right now, it's been dropped down to 30, and but basically 25, because remember the glitch bill says a local authority may determine your proximity to salt water requires you to do this at 25. So the deadlines are really 30 and 25. 40 is old days.
stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say we're selling a condominium now and they haven't had their 40-year inspection. Okay. So the sale can still go through at this moment because they have until 2024 to be compliant.
Right.
And let's say 2024 comes and they still haven't gotten their act together and they're not compliant. And now the deadline passes for them to be compliant. And we try to sell a condo. Does that mean we are not going to be able to sell that condo because the condominium did not perform that inspection?
No, you can absolutely still sell. It's not going to impact your ability to sell. But what you have to understand is your potential purchaser is going to be given a notice that they're not compliant. And that may give some of your more educated purchasers pause. I know if I was looking at a building and you told me I'm getting the notice saying this building has missed the safety deadline, I'm going to say, you know what, maybe I keep looking somewhere else. So you can still, and for other people, if they fall in love with the unit and the building and they go, okay, well, I'm sure they'll do the right thing eventually, it may not matter to those purchasers. But for some purchasers, it will. The other important thing is, I said, figure out what the assessments are. So a lot of these boards know. I want to make this really clear. What's happening is there are many boards out there that are keeping the budgets artificially low, which is something that the developers do, right? They want to sell units, so they keep the budgets artificially low. And then the first thing that happens after turnover is the new board gets in there and they go, wait a second, this doesn't, we can't afford to run this place with these services for these amounts because the developer was keeping it artificially low. And then the budget gets raised, exponentially. The same thing's going to happen here. You may have purchasers who can just barely afford the current budget, right? And what they might not know is there are 5 special assessments lurking around that corner because the board has not even, right now, up until 2025, if they're not funding reserves, they may be thinking, okay, we're going to replenish the reserves via special assessment. When reserves by their nature are meant to be budgeted, but they're not doing it that way. What they're doing is they're like, okay, so we'll just pass a special assessment. Well, that could be disastrous for a purchaser who has not they're not in the know. They're not even in the building. So they haven't been to any board meetings. They don't know what's on the board's mind. And if that special assessment is not yet passed and certified, that's not going to be on the estoppel certificate. So you need to make sure, my advice would be for the real estate profession to make sure that the people buying in these buildings have a sufficient cushion to know that there are some unknowables that are potentially lurking around the corner in terms of costs.
Okay, understood.
And having a line of credit is really great. If you have a building that has a line of credit, I'd feel much more comfortable.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Stefan, go ahead.
This is Stefan. What is the underwriting position and the lender's position regarding those requirements at this time?
I think, that's a great question. Right after, in the immediate aftermath of Champlain Towers, the lenders all sent out these lengthy lender questionnaires. Have you all seen them? And they ask boards to test, to fill out these forms. Many boards wouldn't do it. Frankly, it was way too much for a volunteer board or a manager to say whether or not there's any issue with the structural integrity of the building. That is a question for an engineer. So my recommendation was attach the engineering report. But that is your question is a really good question, because one of the things that has held up some closings are these lender questionnaire forms. And to your question, what's the underwriting? Obviously, lenders want to only lend in buildings that they believe are going to, remain standing and be structurally sound.
That's
So
a good
have they
question.
changed, have they changed the rules, and have they requested that the condo associations or the HOAs perform or guarantee certain things on their estoppel letters?
No, they haven't. So the association is only required currently by law to provide an estoppel certificate. And a couple years ago, the estoppel certificate was updated to add in other information, like, is this unit in violation of anything? There's other Q&A on that estoppel besides just what is owed on the unit. But that's all the association under the Condominium Act is currently required to provide. So the answer to a lender who comes with a 15-page lender questionnaire, the answer is, we're not required to answer these questions. And then it's up to the lender. And by the way, a lot of times the lender should have and does have in-house counsel who can go online, go to the civil court docket, undertake their own due diligence. In my opinion, by the way, I have been lender's counsel early in my career. I was lender's counsel. Look, you can't turn volunteer board members and management professionals into your quasi loan risk officers, which is what a lot of these lender questionnaires want to do. They're pushing the burden onto volunteers to tell them everything, like what percentage of the units are leased. Well, a lot of times it's hard to tell because people are lying. They're not saying their units leased. They're saying it's their, prior college roommates who are there as, long-term guests. So my point being, no, right now, there's no legal requirement. There's been no change that the association fill out a lender's questionnaire. But remember, in my presentation, there is the notification. They do have to notify people who are purchasing with a summary of the milestone inspection and the SIRS.
Wow.
I have a
Shakira,
question.
I'm gonna have to leave you because I've got another event to get to, but it's been a pleasure speaking to all of you.
Thank you so much, Donna. We appreciate your time and great explanations. And we recorded you, so I get to play it for everybody again, because I'm sure they have to make better notes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, guys. Well, you got an earful about the whole condominium thing. And
Can I jump in for a second?
Sure, go ahead, Karen.
Okay, just so I understand that you cannot require the association to fill it out. The problem is that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will not insure the loan without some sort of information from the association stating that the building is secure, or they provide the 40-year 30 or 40 year or whatever engineering report.
If they have one.
Yeah. So unfortunately, even though there's no legal requirement, and Fannie Mae does say we suggest the lender does, but no lender is going to do it without being insurable by Fannie Mae, because if something happens, Fannie Mae is going to say, well, you didn't get the right condo questionnaire done out, and we're not going to insure your loan, and therefore you're stuck with that on your warehouse line. You're stuck with paying for it. There are options where it is non-warrantable condos, where they have to go with the non-QM lenders, which is not Fannie and Freddie, but the rates are higher on those too. So yes, there are options for them, but they're not always the best option. So if we can get them to fill out the questionnaire, that's the best route for them.
All right. Well, thank you, Carrie. So we just wanted to also thank Larry Wallenstein, because he's the one that was able to get Donna Berger to speak to us, because they wouldn't even return our phone calls when we tried previously. And he pulled some strings and he was able to get her here. And as you can see, she's a very valuable asset. She lives condominiums. And if you look at her blog or her podcast, she's deeply entrenched with all kinds of assets of condominiums. Obviously, we only asked her to talk to us about this one aspect, because everything was new, everything was changing, and even our documents, our FARBAR addendums were modified with the verbiage of the inspection requirement, etc. So we wanted you to have some more understanding. But as you can see, sales can still go through. Our job is to ask for the stuff, or to make sure that the buyer asks for the stuff, so that the buyer is fully aware of what that buyer is getting into when they purchase that condo. And as Donna said, very astute buyers maybe get cold feet, because if that's not done, there are unknown variables when that inspection is done. If there will be special assessments or the fees will get raised, and they may turn away from buying that condo. So that's pretty much what I got from that. Larry, did you want to say something?
Please, just to let all of you know, Donna and I have never met before, but I was very pleased with the information she provided. The law firm that she is associated with, now called Becker, formerly Becker and Polyakov, has been known to be the condo experts in terms